The microphone felt cold in my trembling hand. Every eye in that vineyard reception hall was on me. 200 guests frozen with champagne glasses halfway to their lips. My son Nathan's face drained of color. Beside him, my daughter-in-law Alyssa wore that perfect smile, except now it was cracking. "I just wanted you to know I heard it," I said quietly. Because when a woman reaches my age, she learns that dignity doesn't need to shout, it only needs to stand. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back 3 hours earlier, when I was still just a mother excited to see her only son get married. It was 2:30 when I arrived at the bridal suite. The vineyard looked golden in the September sun. I'd spent an hour getting ready, pressed my navy blue dress until there wasn't a wrinkle, pinned my silver hair back neat, even put on Harold's pearl earrings. My hands shook with good nerves, the kind a mother feels when her baby is starting his own family. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. In my purse was my late mother-in-law's locket, 70 years old, worn gold, with tiny photographs inside. I'd promised myself I'd give it to Nathan's bride today. It felt right. Sacred, even. The bridal suite door was closed. I heard voices inside, laughter, music. I knocked once, light and polite. Nobody answered. I reached for the handle to peek in and leave the locket on the vanity. That's when I heard her voice cut through like glass breaking. "She's honestly coming?" Alyssa said, sharp and mean. "Did you see what she's wearing? That tent of a dress? God, she looks like a fat pig." I froze. The locket suddenly felt heavy, like it knew something terrible was happening. Someone giggled. More laughter followed, the kind that feeds on cruelty. "Nathan, I told you. She's going to ruin the photos." Then my son's voice came. That hurt more than anything. "Come on, Alyssa, don't say that. She's just excited." Just excited. Not "that's my mother" or "don't talk about her that way." Just excited. Like I was a child who didn't know better. "Oh, please," Alyssa scoffed. "Your mom has no sense of class. She's embarrassing. I can't believe she's part of this family." The hallway tilted. I looked down at my dress, the one I'd sewn new buttons on last week. The fabric blurred as tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not where anyone could see. In a nearby window's reflection, I caught sight of myself. 67 years old, silver hair neat, standing alone holding a family heirloom for a woman who thought I was a pig. The woman in that reflection looked small suddenly. Breakable. I waited for Nathan to say something else. Anything else. But there was only music and laughter. Alyssa telling someone to fix her veil. My son said nothing. Not one word to defend me. I turned away as quietly as I'd approached. My cane made soft tapping sounds nobody heard. I placed the locket on the vanity outside the suite where the light caught it. Then I walked toward the ceremony space, my whole body shaking with something that wasn't quite anger yet. Something colder. That should have been the end of it. I should have gone home, cried into my pillow, been the bigger person the way I was taught growing up in Vermont. But something happened to me in those 3 hours between the ceremony and the reception. I stopped wanting to be small. Would you have walked away from that door? Or burst through it right then? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next at that reception? You won't believe it. I wasn't always the kind of woman who could stand on a stage and speak truth into a microphone. There was a time when silence felt safer than words, when keeping peace mattered more than keeping dignity. To understand how I found my voice that day, you need to know where I came from. Vermont in the 1950s was all dirt roads and corner stores, where everyone knew your name and your business. My parents ran a small dairy farm outside Montpelier, and I grew up with mud on my boots and flour under my fingernails. Mama taught me to bake before I could write my name. She'd say, "Eleanor, a woman who can feed people will never be worthless." I believed her. I met Harold Whitford at a church social when I was 19. He was 22, fresh back from 2 years working construction in Boston, with calloused hands and a smile that made my stomach flip. He wasn't fancy or rich, but he was steady. The kind of man who showed up when he said he would. We married that fall in a ceremony that cost $47, and I wore my mother's altered dress. Harold worked as a carpenter while I cleaned houses. We saved every penny for 5 years until we could buy that old farmhouse on the edge of town. It needed everything: new roof, new floors, walls that didn't leak when it rained. But it was ours. Harold built an addition onto the kitchen, and that's where I started my bakery. Just me, an old oven, and recipes passed down from women who knew that love tasted like butter and cinnamon. Nathan came 3 years into our marriage. I was 27 and terrified I'd do it wrong, but the moment they placed him in my arms, something clicked into place. He had Harold's dark hair and my green eyes, and he hardly ever cried. Even as a baby, he was gentle. Harold used to carry him on his shoulders through the bakery, letting Nathan grab at the mixing bowls while I kneaded dough. "This boy's got good instincts," Harold would say. "He knows quality when he sees it." We'd laugh, covered in flour, and I'd think, this is what happiness looks like. Simple. Real. Enough. I raised Nathan the way my parents raised me, with manners, respect, and the understanding that kindness costs nothing. He said please and thank you without being reminded. He helped elderly Mrs. Patterson carry her groceries every Sunday. He cried when our dog died and buried him with his favorite toy. That was my boy. Soft-hearted and decent. Harold died when Nathan was 17. Heart attack in the middle of refinishing our porch. He was here, then he wasn't, and the silence he left behind was so loud it hurt to breathe. Nathan held my hand at the funeral and whispered, "I'll take care of you, Mom. I promise." Just like Dad would have wanted. And he did. For years he did. He'd stop by the bakery after his shifts at the hardware store, fix whatever was broken, sit with me while I prepped for the next day. We'd talk about everything: his dreams of opening his own construction business someday, my plans to maybe retire and travel a little. He never made me feel like a burden. Never made me feel invisible. Until he met her. Nathan came by one Tuesday evening in March 3 years ago now. I was closing up, wiping down the counters, when he walked in with this look on his face. Nervous. Excited. The way young men look when they've stumbled onto something they think is magic. "Mom," he said, "I met someone. Someone special." My heart did that thing mothers' hearts do. Equal parts joy and terror. "Tell me about her," I said, smiling. His whole face lit up. "Her name's Alyssa. She's beautiful, Mom. Smart. She works at that new marketing firm downtown. She's different from anyone I've ever known." Different. That word should have been my first warning. 2 weeks later, he brought her to the house for dinner. I spent all day preparing: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans from my garden, and my famous apple pie cooling on the windowsill. I wanted her to feel welcome. Wanted her to see that Nathan came from love, even if we didn't have much money. Alyssa walked in wearing white pants and heels too expensive for our gravel driveway. She was stunning, the kind of beautiful that makes other women check their hair. Perfect skin, perfect teeth, perfect everything. She looked around our small living room like she was calculating its worth and coming up short. "What a cozy place," she said, and somehow made cozy sound like an insult. Dinner was awkward. She pushed the pot roast around her plate, took tiny bites of potatoes, and barely spoke except to mention how she only ate organic vegetables. When I brought out the pie, she wrinkled her nose. "Oh, I don't eat sugar," she said, glancing at my hips. "Some people don't care what they put in their bodies." Nathan laughed nervously. "Mom's pie is famous around here, Alyssa. You should at least try it." She smiled that tight smile. "I'm sure it's lovely for certain tastes." I felt it then, that cold current running underneath her words. But I smiled back, cleared the plates, and told myself I was being paranoid. Overprotective. The kind of mother who couldn't let go. That night, after they left, I stood at my sink washing dishes and cried for reasons I couldn't name yet. Have you ever met someone who looked perfect on the outside but gave you a strange feeling inside? Leave a broken heart in the comments if you've been there. The months after that first dinner were like watching my son disappear into fog. Slowly. Then, all at once, Nathan started canceling our Tuesday dinners. Alyssa's got this work thing, he'd say. Or, we're meeting her parents. Or, just I'm tired, Mom. Rain check. Rain checks that never cleared up. When he did visit, Alyssa came with him. And when Alyssa came, everything changed. She'd sit on my couch with her legs crossed, scrolling through her phone while Nathan and I tried to talk. She'd interrupt with comments about places they were going, people they were seeing, a world I wasn't part of and wasn't invited into. One Saturday in June, they stopped by unannounced. I was in my garden, dirt under my nails, wearing Harold's old flannel shirt. I looked up and saw Alyssa's face pinch, like she'd smelled something rotten. You garden? She asked, like I'd admitted to something shameful. My whole life, I said, standing up and brushing off my knees. Tomatoes are just starting to come in. You want some to take home? She laughed. That high, sharp laugh I'd come to recognize as her weapon of choice. We buy organic from Whole Foods. But that's sweet. Nathan shifted his weight. Mom grows great tomatoes, Alyssa. I'm sure, she said, still looking at me like I was something quaint and outdated. It's just different from what we're used to. Like they were already one unit and I was outside it. They came inside for lemonade. Alyssa walked through my house with new eyes, critical ones. She ran her finger along the bookshelf, examined the photos on the wall, paused at the old floral couch Harold and I had bought at a yard sale 30 years ago. This is all so vintage, she said. Not like it was charming, like it was expired. It's home, I said quietly. She smiled. Of course it is. After they left, I found myself looking at my house the way she had. The worn carpet, the mismatched curtains, the furniture that had stories but no style. For the first time in 50 years, I felt poor. Not in my bank account. In my worth. The engagement came in August. Nathan called to tell me instead of visiting. I proposed last night, Mom. She said yes. My throat went tight. That's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you. We're thinking of fall wedding. September, maybe. Something big. Alyssa's got a lot of ideas. Can I help plan? I asked. I'd love to be involved. Silence on the other end. Then, yeah, of course. We'll let you know. They didn't let me know. Not about the venue, the flowers, the cake, the dress. Nothing. I'd hear about decisions after they'd been made. We booked the vineyard. Alyssa found a caterer. The invitations went out yesterday. I wasn't consulted. I was informed. One afternoon in late August, I drove to the bridal shop where Alyssa was trying on dresses. She'd mentioned it to Nathan, and I thought maybe showing up would be a nice surprise. Mother of the groom supporting the bride. That kind of thing. I walked in with a smile and spotted her on the platform in a gorgeous white gown, surrounded by her bridesmaids and her mother, a thin, cold-looking woman who could have been Alyssa's older sister. Eleanor, Alyssa's mother, said when she saw me, like my name was a stain. We weren't expecting you. I thought I'd pop by, I said. See if you needed any help. Alyssa turned, and for a second something crossed her face. Annoyance. We're actually in the middle of something, she said. But thanks. Her bridesmaids exchanged looks. One of them whispered something, and they all giggled. Well, I said, feeling my face heat up. The dress is beautiful, Alyssa. You look stunning. I know, she said, turning back to the mirror. I left before the tears could start. Sat in my car in the parking lot and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. That night, Nathan called. Mom, Alyssa said you stopped by the bridal shop. I did. I wanted to. You can't just show up places, he said, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Alyssa's stressed about the wedding. She needs space. I'm your mother, Nathan. I know, but this is her day. Can you just let her have it? I swallowed hard. Of course. 2 weeks later, the formal invitation arrived in the mail. Cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering. My name printed like I was just another guest. No phone call. No personal touch. Just an invitation that probably went to 200 other people. I held it in my hands and felt something crack inside my chest. Not break yet. Just crack. But the worst was still coming. The comment that made me realize Alyssa wasn't just indifferent to me. She hated me. I'd stopped by Nathan's apartment to drop off a birthday gift for him. He wasn't home, but I heard voices from the bedroom. Alyssa on the phone, laughing. No, seriously, his mom is so embarrassing, she said. She showed up at my dress fitting like some sad puppy. I hope our wedding photos don't look dated with her in them. Dated. Like I was furniture that didn't match. I left the gift on the kitchen counter and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't make a sound. Just left. That night, alone in my house, I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. And I wondered when I'd become something people wanted to hide. Do you think I should have warned Nathan right then? Comment yes, if I should have. September arrived with cool air and leaves starting to turn, and I still hadn't heard from Nathan about anything real. No, Mom. Here's your role in the ceremony. No, Mom. We'd love your input on the menu. Nothing that made me feel like I mattered. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and I was supposed to just show up and smile like a prop. I tried calling Nathan twice that first week of September. Both times, it went to voicemail. I left messages. Hi, honey, just checking in. Call me when you can. He texted back hours later. Busy with wedding stuff. Talk soon. Talk soon became talk never. I ran into his friend Marcus at the grocery store. Marcus had known Nathan since they were kids, played on the same baseball team, stood up at Harold's funeral, and cried harder than most family. Mrs. Whitford, Marcus said, loading oranges into his cart. You excited about the big day? Of course, I said, trying to sound convincing. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Nathan doing okay? He seems, I don't know, different lately. Different how? Marcus shrugged. Just not himself. More stressed. Snaps at people. I tried to plan a bachelor party, and Alyssa shot down every idea. Said they weren't sophisticated enough. He made air quotes with his fingers. It's his wedding, you know? Feels like he's got no say. I wanted to defend my son. Say he was just busy, just in love, just going through the normal stress of planning a wedding. But I couldn't. Because Marcus was right. He'll be fine once it's over, I said, not believing my own words. That night, I pulled out the old photo albums. Pictures of Nathan as a baby, as a toddler, as a teenager. Him and Harold building a treehouse. Him bringing me flowers on Mother's Day, made from construction paper and pipe cleaners. Him graduating high school, me crying happy tears in the audience. When did I lose him? Or did he lose himself? 2 weeks before the wedding, the formal email came. Not a call. An email. From Alyssa's mother. Subject: Wedding Day Logistics. It was a spreadsheet. Color-coded. With arrival times, seating assignments, photo schedules. My name was listed under Extended Family, even though I was mother of the groom. My seat was in the 4th row. Alyssa's great-aunt was in the 2nd. There was a note at the bottom. Please wear navy or dark gray. No bright colors in photos. Professional hair and makeup recommended. Professional hair and makeup. Like I couldn't be trusted to look presentable on my own. I called Nathan. This time he answered. Did you see the email? I asked. Yeah. Alyssa's mom is really organized. I'm in the 4th row, Nathan. Silence. And it says extended family. I'm not extended. I'm your mother. Mom, it's just logistics. Don't make it a big deal. Don't make it a big deal? My voice cracked. I'm being treated like a stranger at my own son's wedding. You're being dramatic, he said, and I heard Alyssa's voice in the background. Look, I've got to go. We'll talk later. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding my phone, staring at that email, and something shifted. The crack in my chest widened. Not into anger yet, into something colder. Something that felt like acceptance of a terrible truth. My son had chosen his bride over his mother. And maybe that's how it was supposed to be. But the way he did it, the silence, the distance, the erasure, that wasn't love. That was cowardice. I thought about not going. Seriously considered it. Typed out a text that said, Nathan, I don't think I should come to the wedding. You clearly don't want me there. But I couldn't send it. Because Harold's voice was in my head from that last conversation we had before he died. We'd been sitting on the porch, watching the sun set. He was tired. I didn't know how tired. Didn't know his heart was already failing. He'd taken my hand and said, Eleanor, promise me something. When Nathan grows up and gets married, don't let pride keep you away. Be there, even if it's hard, because you only get one son, and he only gets one mother. Don't let anything steal that. I'd promised. And Harold never asked me to promise things lightly. So, I wouldn't let pride keep me away. But I also wouldn't pretend everything was fine. The invitation sat on my kitchen table for days. I'd walk past it, stop, stare. Cream cardstock with gold letters that spelled out my son's future and my past. I finally picked it up, ran my finger over the embossed lettering, and made my decision. I would go to that wedding. I would wear my navy dress and pin my hair back neat. I would sit in the fourth row and smile for the cameras. I would be gracious and kind and everything a mother should be. But I would also bring that locket. The one that had survived 70 years and 3 generations. The one that meant something about family and legacy and promises kept. Even if she didn't deserve it, I would try. One last time. The day before the wedding, Nathan stopped by the bakery. First time in weeks. He looked thin, stressed, older somehow. Hey, Mom. Hey, baby. The old nickname slipped out before I could stop it. He winced. I'm not a baby anymore. I know. Sorry. We stood there in awkward silence. Finally, he said, I just wanted to make sure you're coming tomorrow. Of course I'm coming. I'm your mother. And you'll be nice? To Alyssa? That hurt more than it should have. When have I ever been anything but nice? He couldn't answer that. Because I had been nice. Too nice, probably. Good, he said. Because this is important to her. To us. And I need you to just be cool. Be cool. Like I was the problem. I'll be there, I said quietly. Fourth row. Navy dress. Professional hair. He didn't catch the bitterness in my voice. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. After he left, I locked up the bakery early and went home. I pressed my dress one more time. Polished Harold's pearls. Wrapped the locket in tissue paper. And I tried not to think about how wrong everything felt. Would you still go to that wedding if it were your child? Share your answer below. The morning of the wedding, I woke up at 5 with my stomach in knots. Couldn't eat breakfast. Just coffee, black and bitter, while I sat at my kitchen table and watched the sun come up through the window Harold used to stand at every morning. What would you do? I whispered to the empty room. Would you tell me I'm being foolish? Would you tell me to stay home? The house stayed quiet. No answers from ghosts. I spent 2 hours getting ready. Washed my hair twice to make sure it was perfect. Put on the navy dress and turned in front of the mirror, checking every angle. It fit well, I thought. Not too tight. Not too loose. Modest. Appropriate. Everything I was supposed to be. But I could still hear Alyssa's voice in my head. That tent of a dress. And suddenly the fabric felt too heavy, the color too dull, the whole thing too much like proof that she was right about me. I almost changed into something else. But I didn't own anything else nice enough for a vineyard wedding that cost more than my annual income. The pearls went on next. My hands shook as I fastened them. Then I tackled my hair, pinning it back the way I'd worn it for 40 years. Silver and neat and simple. When I was done, I looked at myself one final time. I looked like a mother. Not young or fancy or sophisticated. Just a mother who loved her son and wanted to be there for his biggest day. That would have to be enough. The locket sat on my dresser in its tissue paper. I picked it up carefully, feeling the weight of it, the history. This had been on my mother-in-law's neck when she married Harold's father in 1955. Had been in her jewelry box through raising 5 children, through Harold's father dying young, through her own long widowhood. She'd given it to me 3 days before she passed, her old fingers pressing it into my palm. "For Nathan's bride," she'd whispered. "When the time comes." The time had come, even if the bride didn't deserve it. I tucked the locket into my purse and headed out. The vineyard was 40 minutes north, and I drove slow, trying to steady my breathing. Every mile closer made my chest tighter. I kept rehearsing what I'd say when I gave Alyssa the locket. Something warm. Something that would build a bridge instead of burn one. "This belonged to Nathan's grandmother. I want you to have it. Welcome to the family." Simple. Kind. The way Harold would have wanted. The parking lot was already half full when I arrived. Expensive cars lined up in neat rows, BMWs, Mercedes, a couple of Teslas. My old Honda Civic looked out of place, but that was nothing new. I parked in the back and sat there for a minute, hands on the steering wheel, gathering courage I didn't know I'd need. Inside the main building, everything was elegant chaos. Flowers everywhere. People rushing around with clipboards and headsets. Someone was yelling about the champagne delivery. Someone else was fixing a tablecloth. I asked a woman with a headset where the bridal suite was. She pointed down a hallway, without looking at me. "Second door on the left." My cane tapped against the hardwood floor as I walked. Noonie had been bothering me all week, probably from stress. The hallway was long and lined with windows that looked out over the vineyard rows, golden and perfect in the afternoon light. I could hear music coming from behind the bridal suite door. Laughter. The sound of women being happy together. For a second, I felt a pang of something like jealousy. Alyssa had her mother, her bridesmaids, her friends. A whole support system of people who fit into her world. And I had a locket in my purse and hope that was starting to feel foolish. I knocked once. Gentle. Polite. The music was too loud. Nobody answered. I stood there for a moment, debating. Then I reached for the door handle, planning to just peek in. Leave the locket on the vanity if they were too busy. Make it easy for everyone. That's when her voice cut through everything else. Sharp. Clear. Cruel. "She's honestly coming?" I froze. "Did you see what she's wearing? That tent of a dress? God, she looks like a fat pig." The locket felt like lead in my hand. Someone giggled. More laughter, feeding on itself, growing meaner. "Nathan, I told you. She's going to ruin the photos." My son's voice. Weak. Hesitant. "Come on, Alyssa, don't say that. She's just excited." Just excited. Not wrong. Not cruel. Just excited. Like I was a child who couldn't help being embarrassing. "Oh, please." Alyssa's voice dripped with contempt. "Your mom has no sense of class. She's embarrassing. I can't believe she's part of this family." Part of this family. Like it was a club she owned and I didn't qualify for. The hallway tilted. Or maybe I did. The locket slipped in my sweaty palm, and I caught it before it could fall. My reflection stared back at me from a nearby window. Silver hair, navy dress, pearls that had been good enough for Harold, but weren't good enough for this. I waited for Nathan to say something. Anything. To defend me. To tell his bride-to-be that she was wrong, that I'd raised him better than this, that love doesn't come in dress sizes or price tags. But there was only music, only laughter, only Alyssa telling someone to fix her veil. My son said nothing. I turned from that door as quietly as I'd approached. My cane made soft sounds against the floor, but nobody inside heard. Nobody was listening for me anyway. I placed the locket on the vanity outside the suite, right there in the light where they couldn't miss it, and I walked away. My whole body was shaking. Not with anger.
Not yet.
With something deeper. Something that felt like waking up from a dream and realizing it was actually a nightmare. I made it to the ceremony space and found my seat. 4th row, just like the spreadsheet said. I sat down, folded my hands in my lap, and tried to breathe. Around me, guests filed in. Beautiful people in beautiful clothes, laughing and hugging and taking selfies. Nobody noticed the older woman in navy sitting alone, trying not to cry. The ceremony started. Music played. Alyssa walked down the aisle like a princess in a fairy tale, and she was beautiful. Objectively, undeniably beautiful. Nathan's face when he saw her. Pure love. Pure joy. Like she was everything he'd ever wanted. I should have felt happy for him. Should have cried those mother of the groom tears everyone expects. But all I could think was, she called me a pig. And he said nothing. During the vows, Alyssa looked out at the crowd, and her eyes found mine. For a second, something passed between us. She smiled. That perfect, practiced smile. And I knew she had no idea I'd heard. No idea what was coming. I smiled back.
Calm.
Steady. With something cold settling into my bones. The ceremony ended. Everyone cheered. Nathan and Alyssa kissed, and the crowd went wild. I clapped along with everyone else, my hands automatic, my face frozen in something like pride. But inside, something was changing. Something that had cracked earlier was breaking now. Breaking open into a space where quiet Eleanor, sweet Eleanor, forgiving Eleanor didn't live anymore. The reception hall filled with guests. Champagne flowed. Dinner was served, fancy food on white plates, the kind that looks like art and tastes like money. I sat at my assigned table with distant cousins who barely knew me, making small talk about nothing. And then I saw it. The DJ's table. The microphone, sitting there unattended while he was off helping with the music system. My heart started pounding. Not from fear. From something that felt like clarity. For 67 years, I'd been the kind of woman who swallowed hurt and smiled through pain, who made peace and kept quiet, who let people walk over her because confrontation wasn't polite. But politeness hadn't protected me. Silence hadn't earned me respect. Being small hadn't made room for me in my own son's life. Maybe it was time to take up space. If you were me, what would you do next? Stay silent or speak up? Comment your answer, because what happens in the next few minutes changes everything. The ceremony ended. Everyone cheered. Nathan and Alyssa kissed, and the crowd went wild. I clapped along with everyone else, my hands automatic, my face frozen in something like pride. But inside, something was changing. Something that had cracked earlier was breaking now. Breaking open into a space where quiet Eleanor, sweet Eleanor, forgiving Eleanor didn't live anymore. The reception hall filled with guests. Champagne flowed. Dinner was served, fancy food on white plates, the kind that looks like art and tastes like money. I sat at my assigned table with distant cousins who barely knew me, making small talk about nothing. And then I saw it. The DJ's table. The microphone, sitting there unattended while he was off helping with the music system. My heart started pounding. Not from fear. From something that felt like clarity. For 67 years, I'd been the kind of woman who swallowed hurt and smiled through pain. Who made peace and kept quiet. Who let people walk over her because confrontation wasn't polite. But politeness hadn't protected me. Silence hadn't earned me respect. Being small hadn't made room for me in my own son's life. Maybe it was time to take up space. If you were me, what would you do next? Stay silent or speak up? Comment your answer, because what happens in the next few minutes changes everything. The microphone was heavier than I expected. cold metal against my palm, slick from someone else's champagne sticky fingers. My heart hammered so hard I thought everyone could hear it. 200 people in that reception hall, all of them laughing and drinking and celebrating, and not one of them noticed the older woman in navy walking toward the stage. The DJ was across the room, bent over his laptop, completely absorbed in queuing up the next song. The microphone stand stood there unguarded, like it was waiting for me. Like this moment had been planned by something bigger than my anger. I didn't run, didn't rush, just walked steady with my cane tapping softly against the polished floor, one step and then another, until I was there. Until my hand wrapped around that microphone and lifted it free. My thumb found the power button. A soft click. A tiny red light flickered on. The music was still playing. People were still talking, toasting, eating their expensive food. Alyssa stood at the head table beside Nathan, her hand on his shoulder, laughing at something one of the bridesmaids said. She looked radiant, untouchable, like a woman who'd never been told no in her entire life. I brought the microphone to my lips. My voice came out quieter than I meant it to, but it carried. "Excuse me." A few heads turned. Not many. The DJ looked up confused. I tried again, louder this time. "Excuse me. I'd like to make a short toast." The music cut off mid-song. The room fell into that strange, uncomfortable silence that happens when someone interrupts a party. Conversations died. Glasses stopped clinking. Every face turned toward me. Nathan's eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Alyssa's smile didn't change.
Not yet.
She probably thought I was going to do what mothers of grooms are supposed to do. Say something sweet about love and marriage, maybe tell an embarrassing childhood story, make everyone laugh, and cry and feel good. I took a breath. My hands stopped shaking. My voice came out steady and clear. I just want to say how proud I am of my son. I looked directly at Nathan. He's always been a kind boy. Gentle, respectful, the kind of man his father would have been proud of. Nathan's face relaxed slightly, relief flickering across it. And Alyssa. I turned to her. "You're remarkable. Truly." Her smile widened. She probably thought that was the end of it. Probably expected me to raise my glass and sit back down like a good little mother who knew her place. "I overheard you earlier," I said. The smile faltered. Just slightly. Just enough. Talking about me. The room shifted. People leaned forward. The air got thicker. "You called me a fat pig." My voice didn't waver. Didn't rise.
Just stated it like a fact.
Like reading ingredients off a recipe card. "And you laughed about how I'd ruin your photos." Someone gasped. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. Alyssa's face drained of color. The perfect mask cracked right down the middle. Nathan stood up. "Mom, I'm not asking for an apology," I continued, cutting him off gently. "I just wanted you to know I heard it. Because when a woman reaches my age, she learns that dignity doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand." The silence that followed was absolute. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own heartbeat, where every breath sounds loud. I handed the microphone back to the DJ. His hands fumbled taking it, like he wasn't sure what just happened or what he was supposed to do next. Then I turned, placed my cane, and walked off that stage with my head high. Behind me, the silence broke. Voices erupted, shocked, excited, confused. Someone said, "Oh my God." Someone else said, "Did that really just happen?" A bridesmaid gasped loud enough to hear across the room. But I didn't look back. Didn't stop. Just kept walking toward the exit, my cane tapping that same steady rhythm it always had. Would you have had the courage to do what I just did? Hit like if you admire calm strength over loud revenge. I made it to the vineyard side patio before Nathan caught up with me. His footsteps were quick, almost running, and when he grabbed my arm I felt how hard he was shaking.
"Mom."
"Mom, stop." I stopped. Turned to face him. His eyes were red, whether from anger or tears I couldn't tell. What the hell was that? His voice cracked on the last word. That was the truth, Nathan. You embarrassed her. In front of everyone. On her wedding day. The words hung between us like broken glass. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing his face. When had that happened? When had he become someone who cared more about embarrassment than cruelty? She embarrassed herself, I said quietly. I just made sure people knew why. You can't do that. He was shouting now, hands clenched into fists at his sides. You can't just, you ruined everything. I ruined it. Something sharp entered my voice. Nathan. She called me a pig. She mocked me for wearing a dress I sewed buttons onto with my own hands. And you stood there and said nothing. His face twisted. I tried to. You said I was just excited. Like I was a child who didn't know better. My throat was tight, but I pushed through. You're my son. My only son. And you let her talk about me like I was trash. She didn't mean it.
Yes, she did.
And you know it. He looked away. Couldn't hold my eyes. That told me everything. I raised you better than this, I said, softer now. Your father raised you better. We taught you that kindness matters more than appearances. That love doesn't measure worth by dress size or bank accounts. It's not that simple. It is that simple. I reached out, touched his cheek the way I used to when he was small and scared. But you've forgotten. And I understand why. She's beautiful. She's exciting. She makes you feel like you're part of something bigger. But Nathan, honey, if she makes you smaller in the process, is it worth it? He jerked away from my touch. You don't know her. You're right. I don't. Because every time I tried, she pushed me away. Every time I reached out, she made me feel worthless. My voice broke. And you let her. Guests were starting to filter out onto the patio. I could see them through the glass doors, pointing, whispering. Alyssa's mother appeared, her face pinched with fury. She started marching toward us. I'm leaving, I said. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I've said what I needed to say. Mom, please. I love you, Nathan. I always will. But I won't apologize for defending myself. I squeezed his hand once. When you're ready to remember who you used to be, you know where to find me. Alyssa's mother reached us before he could respond. Her voice was ice. How dare you? How dare you ruin my daughter's wedding with your petty jealousy? I looked at her calmly. I'm not jealous, ma'am. I'm just tired of being treated like I don't matter. You don't matter, she hissed. Not compared to what Alyssa's given this family. Class. Sophistication. A future that doesn't smell like flour and failure. The words should have hurt. A month ago they would have. But standing there on that patio with the September sun still warm on my face, I felt nothing but pity for this woman and her daughter. For their expensive clothes and empty hearts. Then I guess you won't miss me, I said simply. I called for the shuttle that had brought guests from the parking lot. While I waited, Nathan stood there frozen, caught between his mother and his new family. He didn't move toward me, didn't tell his mother-in-law to stop, just stood there, silent, the way he'd been silent in that dressing room. The shuttle arrived. I climbed in, settled into the seat, and looked out the window one last time. Nathan was crying now. I could see it even from a distance. But he still didn't move. The shuttle pulled away. The vineyard disappeared behind us, all that golden light and expensive happiness fading into memory. I leaned my head against the cool window and let myself cry. Not from regret, from relief, from the strange, painful freedom that comes from finally speaking truth after years of swallowing it down. When I got home, I changed out of my navy dress and hung it in the closet, washed Harold's pearls and put them back in their box. Then I sat on the porch in my old rocking chair and watched the crickets wake up for their midnight songs. My phone buzzed. Text messages coming in. I didn't check them. Didn't care what people were saying, what sides they were taking, what drama was unfolding at that reception without me. I'd done what I came to do. Not revenge. Just truth. Quiet, simple truth delivered in a voice that refused to stay silent anymore. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Comment dignity if you believe sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. 3 weeks passed before my phone rang with Alyssa's number on the screen. 3 weeks of silence from Nathan, of wondering if I'd lost my son forever, of second-guessing that moment on the stage. But not regretting it. Never regretting it. I'd gone back to my routine, opening the bakery at dawn, kneading dough until my hands ached, serving the same customers I'd known for 30 years. They'd heard about the wedding, of course. Small town, big gossip. Most didn't mention it. But Mrs. Patterson hugged me extra tight when she picked up her weekly apple pie, and that told me everything. The phone kept ringing. I stared at it, debating. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail. The part that was still hurt, still angry, still nursing wounds that hadn't fully healed. But Harold's voice was in my head again. Don't let pride build walls, Eleanor. Leave the door open. People surprise you. I answered on the 5th ring. Mrs. Whitford? Alyssa's voice was different.
Smaller.
None of that sharp confidence that usually cut through every word. It's Alyssa. I know. Silence. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uncertain. Then, can I come see you? Every instinct told me to say no. To protect myself. To keep the distance I'd fought so hard to establish. But something else, something that sounded like hope, made me say, tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock. Thank you. The relief in her voice was palpable. Thank you. She hung up before I could change my mind. The next day, I cleaned the house like I was expecting royalty. Dusted shelves that didn't need dusting. Swept floors already swept. Made a fresh apple pie, even though I told myself I wouldn't try to win her over with baked goods anymore. Old habits die hard. Alyssa arrived exactly at 2. She drove up in that expensive car, but this time she didn't look at my house with judgment. She looked nervous. Her makeup was lighter than I'd ever seen it. Her clothes simpler, jeans and a plain sweater. She looked younger somehow. More human. I met her at the door. We stood there for a moment, neither quite sure what to do. Finally, I stepped aside. Come in. She walked into my living room and sat on that old floral couch she'd once dismissed as vintage. Her hands twisted in her lap. She couldn't look at me. I'm sorry. The words came out rushed, like she'd practiced them 1,000 times and still wasn't sure they were right. Mrs. Whitford, I'm so sorry for what I said. For how I treated you. It was cruel and stupid and her voice broke. I sat down in Harold's old chair across from her. Waited. I didn't mean it, she continued, tears starting to fall. I mean, I said it, but I wasn't thinking about you as a person. As Nathan's mother. As someone who. She wiped her eyes roughly. I was just so stressed about everything being perfect, and you represented something I was afraid of. What was I afraid of? I asked gently. She looked up then, really looked at me. Her eyes were red and honest. That I wasn't good enough. That Nathan would realize I didn't come from the kind of family he did. The kind that actually loves each other. Her laugh was bitter. My parents measure worth by job titles and bank accounts. Love was always conditional. Always something you had to earn. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness yet, but understanding. When I met you, Alyssa continued, you were everything I wasn't.
Warm. Kind.
Comfortable in your own skin. And Nathan loved you so completely. I think.
She swallowed hard.
I think I was jealous. The word hung between us. Jealous.
Of me.
Of my small house and worn furniture and simple life. I wanted him to love me that much, she whispered. So I tried to make myself more important by making you less. By convincing him you didn't fit into our new life. Fresh tears spilled over. But all I did was hurt him, hurt us, and hurt you when you'd never done anything but try to welcome me. I sat with that for a moment, watching this young woman cry on my couch, her perfect facade completely shattered. She wasn't the villain I'd built in my head. She was just broken in different ways. You meant it when you said it, I said finally. You did. And that's okay. But what matters now is what you do with that truth. She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. I'm trying to be better. I made Nathan call his friends back. We're doing the bachelor party Marcus wanted. And She looked around my living room. I want to know you, really know you, if you'll let me. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, came back with 2 plates and the apple pie I told myself I wouldn't offer. Some things take time, I said, cutting 2 generous slices.
Trust.
Respect. Real family. But time moves faster when you're honest. She took the plate with shaking hands, took a bite, and for the first time since I'd met her, her smile reached her eyes. It's delicious, she said softly. I know, I replied. Would you like the recipe? She laughed. Really laughed. I'd love that. We sat there eating pie, talking about small things, her job, my bakery, Nathan's terrible singing voice. Nothing deep yet, just 2 women starting over from scratch. When she left 2 hours later, she hugged me. A real hug, not the stiff thing she'd given me that first dinner. And when she pulled back, she said, "Thank you for giving me a second chance." Everyone deserves one, I told her. What you do with it is up to you. Forgiveness doesn't mean weakness. Comment a heart if you believe in second chances. Fall turned into winter, and slowly, carefully, we rebuilt what had been broken. Nathan called first, a week after Alyssa's visit. His voice was rough with crying, or maybe just shame. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have said something. I should have protected you. Yes, I said simply. You should have. I don't know why I didn't. I was so caught up in everything, in making her happy, in being the man she wanted. He trailed off. I forgot who I was. The question is, I said gently, do you remember now? Silence. Then, I'm trying to. That was enough. Not perfect. Not a Hollywood ending. Just honest. Just trying. They started coming by on Sundays. At first it was awkward, long pauses, careful conversations, everyone walking on eggshells. But time has a way of smoothing sharp edges, of making space for healing. Alyssa asked questions about Harold, about Nathan's childhood, about the bakery. Real questions, not polite ones. She listened when I talked about the hard years, the lonely ones, the moments when I'd almost given up, but didn't. One Sunday in November, she showed up with paint supplies. Your porch is looking rough, she said. Nathan and I thought we could help fix it up. I looked at my son, who shrugged sheepishly. If you want, no pressure. We spent that afternoon scraping old paint and applying new coats. White and clean and fresh. Alyssa got paint in her hair. Nathan nearly fell off the ladder twice. I supervised from my chair, offering advice and lemonade. It felt normal, like family. In December, Alyssa asked for the apple pie recipe. I'd offered it months before, but this time she actually wanted it. We spent a Saturday in my kitchen, her hands covered in flour, me teaching her the way my mother had taught me. You've got to feel it, I said, guiding her hands through the dough. Too much pressure and it gets tough. Too little and it falls apart. It's about balance. She looked at me, then really looked. We're not just talking about pie, are we? We're always talking about pie, I said, smiling.
But yes.
Balance. In everything. The pie she made wasn't perfect. The crust was a little uneven, the filling a bit runny. But when she pulled it from the oven and saw how it had turned out, her face lit up with pride. I made that, she said, almost disbelieving. You did. And next time it'll be even better. We ate it together, me, Nathan, and Alyssa sitting around my small kitchen table. The same table where Nathan had done his homework as a boy, where Harold had read the morning paper, where I'd sat alone for so many years after he died. Now it was full again. This is actually good, Alyssa said, surprised. I didn't think I could. You can do anything if someone teaches you with patience, I interrupted gently. That's true for pie and for people. She understood. I saw it in her eyes. The realization that love isn't something you're born knowing. It's something you learn. And sometimes you learn it from the people you hurt, if they're willing to teach you. January brought a snowstorm that knocked out power for 2 days. Nathan and Alyssa showed up at my door with blankets and groceries and a generator. You're staying with us, Nathan said firmly. No arguments. For the first time since the wedding, I went to their apartment. It was modern and sleek and nothing like my farmhouse. But Alyssa had hung photos on the wall, including one of me and Harold from our anniversary, and one of Nathan as a baby in my arms. I want to remember where he came from, she said quietly. Where we all come from. We spent those 2 days playing cards, telling stories, and eating soup Alyssa had learned to make from a recipe I'd given her. It wasn't perfect, too much salt, not enough pepper, but she tried. That's what mattered. On the second night, with snow falling soft outside the window, Alyssa curled up on the couch next to me. I never had this, she said. This feeling, like I belong somewhere. You do now, I told her. If you want it. I want it, she whispered. I really do. By spring, we had a routine. Sunday dinners at my house. Alyssa helping in the bakery on Tuesday mornings. Nathan fixing whatever broke, the porch rail, the leaky faucet, the loose step. We weren't perfect. There were still moments of tension, of old wounds reopening, of having to remember grace. But we were trying, all of us, together. One April afternoon, Alyssa and I sat on my newly painted porch, drinking sweet tea and watching the world wake up from winter. I'm pregnant, she said suddenly. I turned to her, surprised. She looked scared and excited all at once. Nathan doesn't know yet. You're the first person I'm telling. She took my hand. I wanted to ask, would you teach me how to be a mother like you? My throat went tight. Sweetheart, I made plenty of mistakes. But you loved him.
Completely.
Even when he didn't deserve it. Her eyes were wet. That's what I want to learn. I squeezed her hand. Then we'll learn together. Do you believe people can truly change? Share your thoughts below, because this story proves transformation is possible. Summer came again, bringing heat and life and the smell of fresh-cut grass. I was in my garden, the same one Alyssa had once mocked, when I heard their car pull up. These days, that sound made me smile instead of tense up. Nathan helped Alyssa out. She was 6 months along now, her belly round and beautiful. She moved slower but happier, like she'd finally found solid ground after years of floating. We brought lunch, Nathan called, holding up a basket. Alyssa made your chicken salad recipe. Did she remember the celery this time? I teased. Yes, Alyssa laughed. I even cut it the right size. We sat on the porch, eating and talking about baby names, about cribs and car seats, and all the beautiful chaos that was coming. Alyssa asked a million questions. Nathan looked at her like she was holding the entire world in her hands. After lunch, while Nathan dozed in the porch swing, Alyssa and I walked through the garden. She'd started asking me to teach her about growing things, tomatoes and herbs and flowers that bloomed every year without giving up. I'm scared, she admitted, touching a tomato plant that was just starting to show fruit. What if I mess up? What if I'm not good at this? You will mess up, I said honestly. Every mother does. But love covers a multitude of mistakes. As long as you keep showing up, keep trying, keep putting them first. I smiled. You'll be just fine. She nodded, wiping away tears. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that we got through everything. Me too, honey. That evening after they left, I drove to the cemetery for the first time in months. Harold's grave was simple, just his name, his dates, and the words, beloved husband and father. I'd brought a slice of apple pie, which was silly, but Harold had always loved finding pie on the kitchen counter after work. I sat in the grass beside his stone and talked to him like he was still listening. Maybe he was. Maybe that's what love does. It transcends silence and death and time. I think you'd be proud of Nathan, I said. He found his way back. It took a while, but he got there. I paused. And Alyssa, she's not who I thought she was. She was just scared and broken. Aren't we all? At some point. The wind rustled through the trees. Birds sang their evening songs. The world kept turning the way it always had. You told me to keep the door open, I continued. To not let pride build walls.
You were right.
You usually were. I smiled. I miss you, Harold. But I'm okay. Better than okay. I found my voice again. Remember how you used to say I was too quiet? That I let people walk over me? I laughed softly. Well, not anymore. I stayed until the sun started setting, painting the sky in colors that looked too beautiful to be real. Then I stood, brushed off my jeans, and headed home. Life had taught me something valuable these past months. Something I wished I'd known earlier, but was grateful to know now. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and fury. Sometimes it looks like standing your ground, like speaking truth calmly, like refusing to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's picture of who you should be. Justice doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It simply stands, dignified and quiet, and lets truth do the talking. I'd lost something at that wedding. My illusions about my son, my fantasy of the perfect daughter-in-law, my naive belief that kindness alone could bridge every gap. But I'd gained something more valuable, my voice, my boundaries, my sense of self-worth that didn't depend on other people's approval. And in the process, I'd gained a real family. Not the pretty picture I'd imagined, but something stronger. Something built on honesty and second chances and the hard work of choosing each other every single day. Months later, on a crisp October morning, Alyssa went into labor. Nathan called me at 4 a.m., his voice shaking with excitement and terror. I met them at the hospital, still in my pajamas, my hair a mess. 16 hours later, I held my granddaughter for the first time. She was tiny and perfect, with Nathan's dark hair and Alyssa's delicate features. When she opened her eyes and looked at me, I felt Harold's presence so strongly I almost turned around expecting to see him. "What's her name?" I whispered. Alyssa smiled, tired and radiant. "Eleanor. We're calling her Eleanor, after the strongest woman we know." I cried then, the good kind of tears. The kind that wash away old hurts and water new beginnings. That little girl would grow up knowing her grandmother's story. She'd know about dignity and grace and the power of speaking truth when it matters most. She'd know that quiet strength can change everything. And maybe, if I was lucky, she'd inherit that strength herself. As I rocked baby Eleanor in my arms, with Nathan and Alyssa watching, I thought about that day at the vineyard. About the microphone in my hand and the choice I'd made to speak instead of staying silent. About how one moment of courage had rippled out into all these other moments, creating something beautiful from something broken. Justice doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears an apron and a smile. Sometimes it rocks a baby and makes apple pie and teaches young women that their worth isn't measured by dress sizes or bank accounts or other people's opinions. Sometimes justice is just an older woman deciding she deserves better and having the courage to say so. That's the truth I learned. That's the truth I'll teach my granddaughter. And that's the truth I hope you'll remember too. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us what you learned, what you felt, what moment resonated with you most. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. because everyone's journey matters and your voice in the comments helps inspire others walking similar paths. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to find your voice, to set boundaries, to demand respect. Let's spread quiet justice together, one story at a time. Thank you for being part of this family.